our couch episode featuring Jinni, our new APID director.
Thank you.
So this is for APID Heritage Month. So we will be asking some questions for Jinni and to everyone else to see what the new center can do for students and everyone else. So starting off for Jinni, what is your role as the new APID director?
That's a great question, and it's a big role. So I'm the inaugural program director for the Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Student Success Center, which is a mouthful. And so what does that mean? So we haven't had a center before, we haven't had a program director before, so that's what it means for me to be inaugural. And so I'm starting everything, not completely from scratch, because there's been a lot of organization that's been happening here over the last 5 or so years, to get this center, to get my position as the program director. But really, me being here now allows everything to kind of start rolling forward, and for there to be someone to kind of advocate for the center, for the community, and for all that to get built up. And so a lot of my work, and I've been here for about 2 months, since February, has been really kind of getting on the ground and getting to know what the needs are. And meeting with folks. A couple of folks have told me I've done a listening tour, which I kind of feel like, but I don't know if I'm not a politician, but it kind of is what I have done, because I've been learning about San Jose State, been learning about the needs of the community, been meeting with all of these folks actually, and learning about what they know about the university, and then bringing that all together and helping that inform how San Jose State moves forward with building our center. And so that means let's get a space, right? And what programs do we need, and all of that stuff. And then continuing to get data, disaggregated data, to better understand our communities beyond just the stories that we tell, right? So how can we just be the most informed about what our needs are here at San Jose State for our Asian Pacific Islander Desi American students? So in a nutshell, that's what I'm doing. It's a lot though.
So I guess as a follow-up, how do you see yourself as part of the effort to help students and get their needs met specifically? Do you have any ideas or?
Yeah, it's I have a lot of ideas. I've been working with students for the last 5-6 years at different institutions, and especially with APID students actually. So I have a lot of experiences, but then also talking to you all and talking to other students that I've met with, really understanding what the needs are. And I think a lot of the conversations have been around visibility, right? Making sure that our community at San Jose State is so big, and yet the resources aren't meeting the needs of the community, right? Or meeting our students where they're at. And so bringing that visibility up, raising up the needs of the students. The needs that have been coming up are around conversations around mental health, around making resources more accessible, making it easier to ask for resources, ask for help, right? And then also supporting students as they come to San Jose State, as you start, so that a lot of you all have told me stories where, oh, I didn't know, what I was doing, and I kind of stumbled and figured it out, but what does it look like maybe to have some mentorship elements, mentorship programs, identity development programs that can help you kind of on your journey of discovery and learning new things, to have some support structures in place. So those are some of the ideas I'm thinking about, that I really feel have been very informed by the conversations we've been having with students. So definitely not just me coming in and bringing my ideas in. I'm not that kind of person. I want to hear what everyone has to say, and then think about how we can best do that with the resources we currently have.
Okay, so now that you've kind of talked about your role, I would like to have everyone else introduce themselves before we start having our conversation about some of the other questions. So my name is Jace. I use they them pronouns. I am a cultural programmer here at Mosaic. I'm coordinating this couch episode.
Hi y'all, my name is Anna Brazosa. My pronouns are she, her. I am currently a 4th year here at San Jose State, and I am the president of APID SJSU, which is the Filipinx American organization here on campus.
Hi everyone, my name is Nina Chong. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I currently serve as your association's vice president, and I'm a 4th year studying food science with a concentration in Asian American studies.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lee. I am a 4th year English major at SJSU, and I help the APID task force.
Hi, my name's Archit Mahale. I'm a second-year history major with a concentration in American Studies and a pending concentration in African American Studies. And I'm happy to be here.
So these questions are open to everyone. So I guess to kick us off, like how can APID centers help serve students from your perspective?
The biggest thing that I think the APID Center can provide students is a hub for all the different clubs, the different kind of spokes of aspects of APID life and like visibility on campus that already exists, that people have already created, kind of bringing that all together in one place. So maybe the ways that we're already reaching out to the Asian communities are maybe brought together into one center. And then we can reach more people when all the resources are in one place.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that would be helpful, right? Especially since I feel like a lot of these clubs maybe don't talk to each other a lot. Like we have Korean Asian, and then we have like Akmayan, right? And then like I feel like there's room for collaboration. Having a center really like gives a space for students to meet each other and figure out like how we can do some things together, right?
Yeah, just adding on to both of y'all's points, something that I think a lot of the orgs try to do throughout the years, we have so much going on already in our respective organizations. We plan out our years, like we plan out our calendars, and when we try to have the effort to, collaborate with other orgs, like the thread is always through like email, and it's always really hard to kind of come together. And like y'all are saying, like having a space where we can not only learn more from each other, but spark conversations of how we can support one another, learn about each other's cultures, and how we can be advocates for each other. Just promoting a lot of like allyship.
Yeah.
I think of the PIDA Center as a physical and also, what's it called? There's a space on campus, whether physical or not physical, that PIDA students have a place. We've always, been through email, and it's kind of been hard for us to come together as a community to speak out about certain issues, right? Sometimes when we have different particular campaigns going on, it can be a little divided. And I think that as we have a space, either together as a community or even a physical space, that students feel like they're able to have a comfortable place to build up their student voice and bring change into our community. Because oftentimes in our community, it's hard to speak out, whether it be because of stereotypes or our community culture, and but our student percentage is 34%, or 42% including international students. And that's so amazing to me that we finally have a center here that we can bring all these 42% of our student body here together to really talk with one another and just to become friends and build stronger relationships.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you talk about community stereotypes, that's definitely something that was brought to me when I chose my own career path. Because in the South Asian community, there's only so many career choices that are, I guess, well built for South Asians, that being the medical system or engineering. And I remember when I told my parents, I don't want to do either of them, they're all like, what? that was not really an option that we're familiar with. So I've had to figure out what it means for a South Asian Indian American to go through a very American-centric program studying American history. And I'm sure I'm not the only person at this campus who is part of the Asian community who is doing a non-traditional career path. So I hope that with the APID Center, I'd be able to connect with them as well.
So I guess moving on, then what do you imagine APID Center to be like? This could be the physical space, it can be what it embodies, it can be a number of things.
Big, yeah. I was gonna say, I hope it's big.
I hope so too.
Unlike this very tiny.
Yes.
This very small space that we're currently in. Bigger than this, that'd be great.
Bigger than this.
When I think of the center, I think of when I think of a space, I can't help but think of, you know when you get hot pot and you have this big boiling pot in the middle, but then everyone else is crowded around trying to get fish balls, trying to put some meat in, you know, trying the different flavors. And that's kind of what I kind of see. I see the APID Center as that center hot pot, where everyone else, all different, your favorite, you know, your favorite flavors of fish ball or your favorite kind of meats, that you're all putting it all together in the pot to enjoy together.
I have this image of now the center being like a hot pot, which is a wild image, but like an actual hot pot.
Just like a 500 scale.
Yeah.
For like 500 people, let's all eat.
We all jump in.
Yeah. Other folks?
I'm kind of thinking, so the Mosaic Cross-Cultural Center has like 2 meeting rooms, it has a prayer center. So I was kind of curious what ideas you had that could fit in the APID Center.
Ooh, ask me a question when you got to ask a question. Okay. It's all good. I'm here to answer questions. Honestly, I think right now, I just really want space for people to gather and come together. We have other student success centers at San Jose State. We have, you know, the Chicanx Student Success Center, Centro, and we have the Black Leadership and Opportunity Center. And both of those spaces, to me, when I walk into them, I see students just hanging out at tables. I see staff and faculty coming in and doing drop-in hours. Like, those are things that I really want for the APID Center too. Like, I want, and I've already talked to faculty who are like, I want to have office hours in the center when it's open, and I'm like, yes. Or, you know, staff people who also want to do that kind of process of just hanging out and being. And I think that's really the thing that I want most for the center, is that it's a space where people across the community, not just our students, but students can connect with like our faculty and staff as well, to just be and have those connections that y'all were talking about, build friendships, build cross-community solidarity, because we are a huge community. And there's so many experiences and so many cultures and so many languages and so much of everything that we can't individually hold, right? And that's what it's important for us to be in community together. So I really want the center to be able to embody that. And then, you know, office space for our professional staff and stuff like that. But honestly, I'd also love to see, like, and I've been thinking about this for a little bit, just in the back of my mind for fun, like, our histories on this campus reflected on the walls somehow. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I mean, I think I walk through the student union and I see all the alums on the wall, and I'm like, that could be really cool to have something like that in the APID Center too, so we can see our community reflected back at us.
I'm just thinking about the hot pot thing, and I'm thinking about like the round tables where you spin the middle probably. We should just have
the Lazy Susan thing.
We should just have one of those.
Just at all times, always.
We just have snacks, and then people can just like sit down, like rotate.
I know that, yeah,
An
they
actual
sell
hot
those, not like installed in the table. But
No, they sell the Lazy
thing you
Susans.
could like, and it's just full of snacks.
Yeah. I was even thinking like having a space like that. You know, one thing that I always kind of wish in the time that the APID Center would come is, you know, having a space where like, right, everyone like with their designated organizations can have like a little space of their own, but they have this center of like this big table where like maybe once a month we can all kind of come together, talk about, what holidays are coming up that reflect, what we celebrate, have celebrations there, have meetings of like, presidents or even like, the community chairs or whatever, to come together and talk about, let's work on something right now, or let's meet, just like having it as a meeting point for everyone. It's just so much easier and accessible to just have a space like that.
Yeah, definitely. As a president of Spartan Wushu, which is like a smaller cultural club, it's been really difficult to be known on campus. So if we have that meeting point where we get to see different organizations from all different types of cultures or ranging groups of people-wise in their organizations, it'd be really cool to see how we could collaborate and just share ideas and support one another as well.
And then it would probably be easier to hold like larger showcases and get in touch with more clubs. Right now we individually email a lot of clubs and organizations and also professors to like let them know about things that are happening. it would also be like give us a chance to partner directly with programs on campus, like grad programs that maybe want students but don't know how to reach specific populations because we don't have that help yet. And also, I kind of want to say, like, the hope is someday we have all these things, and like this is just the first step, and like they look back and this is what we were imagining. It's kind of cool.
Hi, future us.
This video is for future us. Put it in the box, the shoe box that you put in the ground, right?
Yeah.
If we bury it, we're not going to get back out. It's concrete here.
Oh, this is very true. We can't bury it in concrete, so we have to find dirt. I think something you said, Rebecca,
nice.
at the beginning of this all, like, really ties it in for me, is like thinking about the center as a hub. And I've talked about it with a couple of different folks, as like hoping that it can become at some point, and we're all moving, right? So it's gonna grow at its point, like a one-stop shop resource where folks can drop in and ask questions, and we have students working in the centers, we have professional staff working in the centers who can answer questions. And if we don't have the answers to the questions, we can direct folks to that, right? And so, like the piece that you said, Rebecca, that really resonated with me was like the spokes. So like spokes on a bike wheel. So thinking about a bike wheel, it has like tons of different spokes, right? Yeah. But they all end up at that center. So thinking about the center as the center of that bike wheel, and we have different spokes that go out and support the wheel and make it be able to run, right? So Spartan Wushu, Akbayan, grad department, Mosaic Cross-Cultural Center, right? And so like how can the APID Center work with all those different spokes and also share the information of all those different spokes, but also do its own thing too, right? So it's a tall order for a center, and I don't know if we're going to get there in the first year or the second year, but I think it's an aspirational place where we can work towards providing those resources and providing those connections for folks.
Yeah, you said all of the spokes meet in the middle. And then I thought of Nina when you talked about the Spartan Wushu Club, which is a much smaller organization, that if someone stumbles into the APID Center and they see all these different avenues that they could see, I'm sure that like a lot of students could find their home in a club such as Akbayan or a club such as the Wushu Club.
Okay. So, what kind of programming do you want to see coming out of the APID Center?
Food. I would love to see us, of course, in a safe environment, or, with COVID and everything, but food is really, as a food major, and also who's someone who grew up around food being the center of my culture, in my opinion, I think it's the best way to bring a community together. And I would love to see different, probably food nights, or different ways that students can introduce each other, but it doesn't have to be hi, I'm Nina, and I'm Malaysian and Taiwanese. It's no, try this food, try out, see what do you think of it,
Have a taste of the culture.
Yes.
I would love to see workshops that kind of aim towards what each kind of community needs at that time, or we're always I feel like we're always kind of clumped, or before the APID Center, and even still now, the Asian community, the API community is clumped into this one category where we have all these different cultures and backgrounds and stories that we all have our own struggles and our own trials and challenges, and we need spaces where we can kind of talk about it with each other. So it'd be really cool to have maybe monthly workshops where we kind of highlight something that needs to be addressed, whether that's a political issue, a social issue, a mental health issue. Mental health advocacy, I think, is something that we're in dire need of in our community. So I would love to see that, and it can highlight or communities, depending on, I don't know, what the climate is like, right? So I think that'd be really, really beneficial for us and for everyone else. Yeah.
Picking back off of that, it's so, I guess I've noticed that currently with our community, before Jinni arrived, definitely it's always been the Mosaic has been the place where we could have those those workshops about tough conversations. And I'm really thankful that now that we have more people to support our community and to mentor one another, I definitely agree with having workshops about just having these conversations, especially in our community. Again, sometimes it's really difficult or intimidating to say something that isn't normally agreed upon in our culture. So when we gather with one another as student leaders or just as students, we can like fight against those stereotypes and those stigmas, so that our next generation could be be supported and advocated for.
And then again, like two things is that the statistic that we are like 43% of the campus and we are one of the most diverse campuses, but also that data is very rarely disaggregated and very rarely taken out of context as the monolith. I think it's really important to have see the overlap, but also the differences within those communities. I think it'd be really useful and nice to have maybe a discussion or like a space where people can kind of ask questions about like what it's like, and then not have to explain the Asian part.
There's this great quote that Eugene Liang said yesterday about how it's like my Asianness defines my Americanness. And that really struck me because we constantly get asked, like, you know, what language do you speak, or, you know, where are you from? And it would be so cool to just talk with one another as our community. Of course, we're gathered together because we're APID students, but there's so many other aspects of it that we constantly don't get that question a lot. We don't get asked a lot about.
I'm trying to think of questions.
I think
programs, right?
one thing that I just want to highlight and recognize, like the folks we have in the room today on this couch, if you will, is that we don't have any Pacific Islander folks sitting with us today, and I want to highlight that too. And so when we talk about APID, we're talking about Asian Pacific Islander and Desi folks, right? And so Pacific Islander folks, you know, I think it's really important that the center also brings them into the frame. I think that oftentimes Pacific Islander folks get lost in this API kind of conversation and get lumped in. And while there is shared experiences, like some of the things actually that Nina, you shared, like being asked where are you from and things like that, there are also very distinctive differences, right? And we also have like intersecting histories too when you think about colonization and imperialization in the Pacific Islands, and how that also intersected with like, you know, Asian immigration. And so, you know, to go a little into the weeds about it, but wanting to just like say that too, is that something that I really want to make sure that the center is able to do, is welcome and hold space for our Pacific Islander students on this campus as well.
Okay, I guess lastly then, how can a PETA Center engage students? What do you think would help get them to engage with different aspects of the center and the rest of campus life? Like, how can the PETA Center help direct students to everything else?
Is this a me question or everyone question?
Everyone. As students, and then as the new director, how do you all feel? Well, at least how do you feel you can be engaged, and how do you think that can help engage other students?
I think a big thing a lot of the organizations and clubs on campus can benefit from is that I'm sure the PETA Center will have like a massive bulletin board, just like the one in Mosaic. So they can pin all their different flyers and events and resources for both like cultural resources or academic resources. And maybe people who are not in those clubs can be like, hey, I still want to check this out. Like, this is still kind of curious, or I'm still pretty curious towards this. So I feel like that's a great way to explore new cultures as well, and like celebrate the differences as you talked about.
Yeah, and then the thing that draws a lot of people to clubs right now that are identity focused, like Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers, is Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers, and I think that bringing those, a lot of that is for community, and that's for people are looking for that community, and if you bring those communities into one place, then you have a larger community. Community raindrop effect. Yeah, that's it. Hi.
Hi.
I'm trying to think of a different metaphor.
Go
but it's
ahead.
not going anywhere.
How does, repeat the question.
Like how can the PA Center engage students? Like we're all very involved. So how do you think, if you were a new student, how do you think you have gotten involved with the center?
Oh, and then getting here, I had to like look up different clubs and like focuses, and it would have been great to have known that coming in, I think, and not because we built our ways up here. Like you found your way into the communities that fit you, and you found like most important to you. I think helping students do that earlier would be great.
Yeah, like we weren't all student leaders, like just out of the room, like
Out of the room of San Jose State.
yeah,
Awesome, since day one.
Announcing my presence now.
Like the end.
I think that just having a place to be and to exist is sorry. I guess I'm thinking back while you were saying about like how we just had to look up, you know, who am I fitting in? Let me look in the Sammy app. Just to be and to exist on this campus, and feeling safe.
It shouldn't be a struggle.
Yeah. I don't know why it's like coming to me, but I think that's something that we don't talk a lot about, is not being asked to explain ourselves or to share about why we're Asian or why we're APID students. Just to be able to having a safe place on our campus that we can be our authentic selves. I think creating that safe space and welcoming students in that way as well will definitely be inviting for students that don't necessarily feel comfortable sometimes with explaining their heritage, or don't have the resources to explain their heritage.
A place you can unapologetically be you,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing, Nina.
Yeah.
I definitely kind of feel that, right? So especially being a person coming here, it was great that we had a Pride Center. I don't know what I would have done without a Pride Center. And I think going into that is the mentorship was really important, formal or informal. So I feel like having the PA Center maybe have some sort of mentorship program would be really great to help connect students to having that older person really guide you. And I think it also I feel like for a lot of first female born Asian Americans or just Asian people, there's this expectation that you have to be the parent, but then now having someone else to be able to kind of almost parent you is very relieving.
I saw this TikTok. It was being women of color, you constantly have to look like you're put together. Because at home and even in our community, we're supposed to be seen as the caregivers or the silent but still taking care of everyone. Yeah, and I definitely see what you're saying. Well, I can't experience the same. I don't have your same experience, but yeah, it'd be cool for us to
Have someone lead the way.
yes. Yeah.
I think I kind of interpret, your question, and I'm kind of trying to draw back from a lot of our, our beginning days as college students, kind of trying to navigate our own feelings and what we're trying to seek out in our college career. And I think the two things that kind of come up is, I think first of all, students are trying to look for comfort, and then they're trying to look for growth.
Yes.
And I think when it comes to comfort, right, you're talking about like a safe space and where you can be yourself and to be around people that accept you for who you are. And then after that, that initial pool of like, okay, you're safe. You can talk about what you're feeling. You can talk about those hard conversations of mental health. And people cope with those things differently. So, you know, when we have like speakers and we have people that have been in your shoes, people who are creatives, freelancers that have made it, who have struggled with the, you know, the family or societal norms of being Asian American, going into certain fields. Or some people cope with it through like comedy, you know, like even having like comedy shows, talking about like, you know, the ridiculous stereotypes that we face every day, to like, you know, outlets of art. I think when we draw those things in, that provides the comfort, and then the growth comes from, right, again, like having those conversations and then being able to dismantle all those things that we struggle with, which is, you know, it's a marathon. It would take a while, but I think that's where I think the APID Center can, you know, continue having those intentions, and slowly but surely, you know, the purpose will be fulfilled, I think.
Yeah, I'm really resonating with the way both of you guys talked about the APID Center as being like a safe space where you can unapologetically be yourself. And I know throughout American studies and just ethnic studies as a whole, we always talk about immigration and Asian American or Asian immigration into America. And I know throughout American studies, we always talk about assimilation and the process of Americanization, and if it even begins with immigrants coming here. And I know that in the Indian American community, there is always that slight resentment towards Indian immigrants in America, as opposed to being born in America and being Indian. And I have a lot of international friends who are Indians, and they are also in their own communities aside from like the Indian American community. And I just hope that the APID Center can bring both of them together and then sort of recognize that they aren't too different, like they are the same. So that's something I'm looking forward to as well.
I'm super resonating and in my feels about everything that you've all shared, because it connects with a lot of my own personal experiences having been Asian American, identifying as Nepali American. So my parents immigrated from Nepal to California, born and raised in the South Bay. And so when I was growing up, and this makes me sound old, and I am old, so there's that. But when I was growing up, I was the only Nepali kid in my classes, like sometimes the only South Asian person in my classes. And this is like, you know, early 90s. And like all of the things that you're talking about, like wanting a safe space, a place to not have to explain myself, just wanting people to understand me, finding that comfort home place so that I can then venture off into doing something different, and that I felt safe to like explore and grow. All of those things are things that I've experienced, and all of those things are things that I hope for the center, for folks who engage with the center, that we can provide that support. Everyone will come to the center, and when I talk to students, I'm always like, take my card. You don't think you need me today. You probably don't think you need me tomorrow, but you might come to me a month from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. You might know someone who would want the center a year or two from now. It's important to be aware of it, because you never know when you might need it, right? And like you all kind of explained, like you came here, you weren't out of the womb leaders, right? And you didn't have like this knowledge and experience that you're sharing today from like when you started at San Jose State. This all came from growth, from experiences, from painful experiences, from joyful experiences. And if the APID Center can support students in that growth and help you all be successful, not just in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom, and your whole selves that you bring to school every day, no matter what people tell you, you bring your whole self to the school every day. I think that's really what I think the center can do to support students, and also to kind of show students that this is a place for them, right? And then the other layer on that is me as the director and the center also showing the institution how important it is for you all to have this place to be successful here.
And we're all here because we're thinking about the future. We're all here imagining, like, what it would have been like if we had the center and what it's going to be like now that the center is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really nice.
Are you graduating?
I am.
Me too.
Oh, period. Go us. But
You can tell the folks
Yeah.
around you
for the
about
greater
the
good,
center.
pass
Yeah.
it down. We'll
I'm
come
so glad
back.
that it's happening.
Just
Yeah,
come visit.
we'll visit.
Come visit. Come
Come
visit.
It truly is mind blowing.
Totally want to see alum come into
Yeah.
the space once we have a center, for sure. So you all are welcome. Now,
We'll
even though we don't have a space, you're welcome now.
We'll pull up a hot pot.
Pull up a hot pot,
Yeah.
bring it in.
Turn up the heat.
Turn up the heat.
I'm definitely thinking of when you said growing up in the 90s, being the only Nepali student. I can definitely imagine that there are some international students who feel like they do not have space here, and like their mindset is what your mindset was growing
Yeah.
up, where like they don't know if they have a space. Maybe they're the only student in their little community. So, but I don't know. It kind of makes me kind of cry that like they don't have to struggle, right? They don't have to spend almost 20 years to find this home, and that it'll be here,
Yeah.
like ready for them to use whenever they want it, whether it's tomorrow, the day after, like you said.
Yeah.
But it'll always be here, and that's definitely like a weight off of our shoulders. Like I definitely wasn't the only Indian American like in my community or like in my grade, but I was one of like the only few in a predominantly white county. And growing up, I'd have to ask or answer a lot of these questions, like where are you from? Do you speak Indian and stuff like that? It's like, do I have to explain? Because many times I didn't even know the answer because I wasn't taught these things, so I would just kind of be confused. But even for people who are confused, they could come to the APID Center, they can learn about their own culture as well, meet other people who hopefully know the answers to questions that they have. And it's just one big community little pot.
And the best part about being in community is that if none of us know the answers, we can figure it out together, right?
Yes.
Literally just had an experience yesterday where a couple of us were on a Zoom and I could not figure out the answer and everyone helped me crowdsource the answer.
Big fan of that.
And I think that, well, I mean, it wasn't the internet, it was just literally sharing my screen. But the point being is that, like, I couldn't figure out the answer by myself. But I had a group of people around me and together we found it, right? And so how can we do that with the center too?
Yeah, I definitely feel about that, like reconnecting with your culture kind of situation, just because like since I feel like being like having parents who were immigrants who came here, there's a lot of like, oh, like we're not going to teach you about your culture because we want you to be American, we want you to have an easier life, right? And then like I don't know how to ask my parents like, oh, can you teach me about these things? And it would be so much easier if like, if I don't know, I was able to just ask Nia like what things happened in Taiwan. I don't know. So yeah.
Just talking about parents, I talked to while we were advocating for the center, I asked my parents like, when you were in college, did you have a center or a place to, to find your people? And they were like, no. We made our own student orgs, and we just had club gatherings. So I think that this place wouldn't just serve us as students, but also as community members too. And that I guess parents or guardians would feel safe knowing that there are other people on the campus that might share the same experiences and they wouldn't feel so alone. When I first came to San Jose, they were like, we know there's like Taiwanese food spots like a 15-minute drive away, but you don't drive. How are you going to find your food? And I was like, I'll bring food from home. But it's little things like that, like finding your own cultural food nearby. I had to ask people from TSA, like, hey, where can I get some 粽子, or where can I get, like those white rabbit candies, because I didn't know where to find them here. I only knew East Bay. that beat me to me. But anyways, but yeah, so this center doesn't just serve us as students, but also just as like a greater community in itself, where we also bring back the things that we've learned and the experiences that we have with one another as well.
And I think that's the only way the center can grow, is that if we share ourselves in it and we help build it up together, right? Because I'm only one person right now. We still don't have a full professional staff team yet. And so thinking about like, when I'm talking to you all, I'm also asking for your help, right? And having that ability to be able to work with you all, and you all providing your help to me and sharing your knowledge with me allows us to build up the center together, right? So it's like 101 of community organizing and grassroots organizing. Doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a year. It doesn't happen in 2 years. It takes time, and we grow and we learn and we change and we make mistakes, right? And then we grow from that and we make things better. We try something once and then we're like, we can do this way better now that we've done it once, right? So that's going to be the process of the center too.
And that's a wrap. And thank you everyone for coming. And thank you for Jinni for making time to come speak with us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Come to the center when it exists.
Follow us on Instagram.
Follow us on Instagram at SJSU APIDA. We will continue to post events and programs and share resources on there, and then hopefully that will lead into a physical space. Woo! Yay!
I have a last question for you.
Yes.
If someone needs help like now, where can they go?
To me, you can find me. Great question. Thanks, Archit, for like bringing that information in.
Yeah.
You can find me in the student union. My office is 1351. We're actually in my office. So if you see from the outside an office that looks like this on the inside, it's probably my office. It is essentially next to student involvement Centro, which is our Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center, and also the Blacks Leadership and Opportunity Center. So yeah, just look for an office that kind of is around that area and you'll find me. If my door is open, please drop in. I have snacks. I have Asian snacks. I have Pocky, Haichu, and Parle G right now. Probably will have other things another time. And yeah, and if my door is closed, feel free to hit me up and send me an email. My email is on my window, so you can find it there too.